Hey, could you pass me some juice?
Yeah, sure. Here you go.
Thanks, awesome. What? Hey, did you drink all of my juice?
Oh, that's because I passed it by reference.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. In this video, we are going to uncover one of the most craziest mysteries of programming: passing by value versus passing by reference. So you might have seen this particular animation in which what's happening is that if we assign a new variable a value by reference, then if you change the original value, the new value also changes. But if you pass it via value rather than reference, then if you change the new variable, the old variable does not change. Or if you change the old variable, the new one doesn't change because they are not interlinked. So I have done some cool stuff for you already, and that is I have created these images that we can use now in our React application, one for the empty cup and one for the full cup. Now the link of this project should be in the description of this video. So essentially you can go and check this out yourself. But what we are going to do is that we are going to essentially create, first of all, the URLs for these images. So I'm going to start by just defining those constants. So we are going to say something like empty cup, and then here we can essentially define the URL of this. So we can say this, and then we could also have something like const full cup, and we are going to call this empty cup source and full cup source. And here we are going to provide the URL for this one. Now that we have those values, we can talk about creating an object that we can use within this example. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to essentially create a cup. So I'm going to say cup, or we could say cup original, for example. And here we would essentially have a source variable, and here we are going to essentially assign this with empty cup source by default. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create two cups within this UI. So for that, first of all, I'm going to create those variables. So I'm going to say cup1 set cup1, and here I'm going to use the state, or use the use state hook here and say something like cup, or we could say cup original. And then here on the second one also I'm going to do the same thing, but we are going to use set cup2 and the variable cup2. Now you notice that both of these variables, cup1 and cup2, they are referencing the cup original. So in this case we are going to see something interesting. Now that we have those, I'm going to create two images here. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to essentially go and say image, and here we are going to give this, let's say, a height of 100, for example. And then the source would be, for this one, this would be cup1.src, and we are going to close the image here. And here I'm going to put another space and kind of copy this one and then use the second one. So we are going to use the cup2.src here. Now that we have those, let's implement this button logic. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and say something like on click. I'm actually mixing Angular here, so it would be on click, and here we are going to use a function, and in this function we are going to essentially change the URL of the cup original essentially. So I'm going to go here and say something like, or even I could do something like cup1. I'm not changing this cup original, but rather this cup1. So I can say cup1.src equals, and then I can say full cup source. And finally, since I have done this, I need to use the set cup1 method so I can basically reflect the change. So I could do something like set cup1, and then I can say cup1. And now notice one important thing, that I have not touched cup2 variable at all. And the only way I can change the cup2 variable at this moment, since I'm using use state, is to use the set cup2 method, and I'm not using it, which means that I'm not touching it. So I'm going to save this now, and if I click the button now, let's see what happens. Nothing. And that is because since this cup1 is exactly the same, we don't have any change, and React doesn't know how to re-render it. So we are going to use the spread operator here, but with the cup1 variable. So it's exactly the same, but here we are assigning this into a new object. Now if I click fill cup1, see, both of those cups changed. Why? Because we have both both of these variables, cup1 and cup2, essentially referencing to cup original. And since we have supplied a new one to this cup1, that is why everything is changed in this particular case. So it actually modified this one. What we could also do is that we could also say something like console.log, and here if we try to console log cup original, let's see what we have. So here you can see that the full cup source is y4go blah 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 here. So I'm gonna bring up the console here, and now if I hit this button, you see that we are logging cup original here, not cup1, not cup2, but even cup original's source is now changed to this full cup, which is this y4go whatever URL. So here we have a problem because we have everything or both of these variables using the cup original variable by reference. And the concept behind this is that both of these variables are pointing to the same address in the memory where this variable is saved, and that is why we call it passing by reference or assigning a reference rather than the value. So how do we make this happen that when we change the original object, the second object or the new object that we have created or the new variable, it doesn't change? And this is a big problem in JavaScript, and you might already have faced this in one of your projects. The only way to ensure that we don't get into this issue where changing the original object changes the new one is to make sure that we are creating a new object assigning to the new variable. That is the only way to do this. So let's try this out. So instead of just using this cup original here, I'm going to use the spread operator here, which is cup original. And what this does is that this essentially creates a new object. It copies all the properties from this object into this new object and then assigns this new object to cup1. Now this is really important, and important because when we do this, then this cup1 does not have a reference to this object, but it has a reference to this object, which means that changing this will not do anything, or changing this cup1 will not even affect cup2 in this case. So if I do this, let's see what happens. If I fill the cup1 now, you see that only the first cup gets filled and the original object still has the original URL for the empty cup. Now what would happen if I change this cup original to cup1? Would that affect anything? So if I do this now and if I fill the cup1, you see it is still follows the pattern. Why does this now follow the pattern? Because now the cup1 has a reference to this object, but then we say, hey, cup2, use state cup1, which means that we are saying right now that, hey, cup2 should also point to the reference of this object. Now cup1 and cup2, they both are referencing to this new object instead of cup original. So this is something that you may face in the project. So we need to make sure that these two are different. These two are pointing to two different objects. That is very important. And now if I try to fill the cup, you see that it works flawlessly. And boom, we now understand how to work with references and values, especially within JavaScript, but the same concept holds in other programming languages as well. If you can think of some interesting JavaScript concept that you want me to cover, feel free to write in the comments. Let me know how you found this video, if you found this useful or not. Press the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and share this video with everyone. As always, happy coding. I'm going to see you in the next video.